Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I welcome back a very special guest, freshman from the Minnesota Duluth women's hockey team, Clara Van Wieren. Welcome back to the podcast, Clara, and thank you so much for coming on. How's everything going?
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. It's going well. What about you?
Doing well. Weather's starting to get nicer. Semester's about to end, so things are going well on my end.
Nice. That's awesome. It snowed here yesterday, so I can't say the same, but
Oh, that's crazy. It's almost May and still snowing in Minnesota.
yeah.
It definitely puts things in perspective because I always feel like New England is a pretty cold area to live in, but then you think about what goes on in like Canada and Minnesota, and it's almost May and still snowing. So I feel pretty fortunate to live in an area where it's not too bad winter-wise in the
Yeah.
May.
It's a whole different world here, so
Definitely.
we're lucky.
Now, congratulations on all the success you've had individually, and congratulations to your team as well for making the Frozen Four. That's a great accomplishment. Have you had time to process what just happened, and how have you been reflecting so far in the season you just had?
Yeah, I've had a lot of time to reflect, probably too much time. But it's been good. And just like looking back on it, it's just surreal and always a memory that we will all cherish. So
Nice. And what have you been up to since the season ended?
I visited my sister in South Carolina, which was a lot of fun, just getting away from the rink in the cold weather for a bit. So that was a nice vacation. And then we actually just started working out again. And that's been fun getting back with the girls in the gym.
That's awesome to hear. And how's South Carolina? And what'd you do when you were down there? I've never been there before.
Well, my sister and her friends have an Airbnb on a canal. So I just went down there and hung out with them, and we kind of just ate out a few nights and just chilled. She's my best friend, so it was a lot of fun just seeing her regardless of what we did. We played some golf too, which is always good.
Nice. How good of a golfer are you? What's your handicap?
I don't think you want to know. I'm not that good of a golfer. It's more of just a for fun thing.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm the same way. My putt game is pretty bad to say the least. I feel like my long game's pretty good. Like I can drive and make some solid chips, but then once it gets to the putter, it feels like I have to hit it like 5 times before it actually goes in.
Yeah, it's always that putt for bogey, and then it turns into
Hmm.
whatever it might turn into on the day. But
Definitely. I'm more of a mini golf guy, so I feel like I do better regarding that than actual golf. But I haven't golfed in quite some time, so I gotta get back out on the course.
yeah, you gotta get back at it. It's a lot of fun.
Nice, nice. What's the weather like in South Carolina? And just talk about the beaches and just the canal in general.
I think it's like 85 there right now. So I got a good tan going. It's already disappeared with the snow. But yeah, it was so beautiful. We actually didn't make it down to the beach because apparently it was really windy there. But even just going for walks and runs outside was a great change.
Well, that's good to hear. And obviously, the wind, I feel like people underestimate how terrible wind can be because recently, I don't know what it's like in Minnesota, but it's just been super windy. It's been super annoying. And it can get pretty annoying, especially because everything's online and you don't want the power to go out. And wind is just the main culprit for power outages. So I'm glad you didn't have to experience the bad wind.
Yes, I agree.
Now, what are your off-season plans and what do you hope to work on for your game?
Off-season plans. So we're just getting to the gym, and I've also been running a lot. I really enjoy running in the off season. So just losing some of that in-season weight is the plan for right now. And then getting back, doing some agility stuff, and getting back on the ice and working on that aspect of my game later in the summer, which I'm already getting excited for.
Yeah, definitely. What's something you want to work on in the off season regarding your game? Is there some, when you look back on, is there some part of your game that you want to work on and try to improve on?
Quick release shooting for sure will be a focus this summer, and then passing accuracy is another thing that will be huge.
Now, I want to start off talking about the beginning of the regular season. Your team was consistently one of the top 10 teams in the country throughout the entire regular season. How did your team try to maintain that success despite all the pressure that comes with having that ranking?
I think just I talked about this in the last podcast, but being grateful for every opportunity we had. So just really not taking for granted every time we were together at the rink, whether it was working out or practicing, and then especially those games, feeling the heartbreak that we felt when games would be canceled, series would be moved around, it really just made it that much more special every time we got to hit the ice together.
Is that how you handled the outside pressure with the ranking? Because that's something that people don't consider is when you're a top 10 team, there's a lot of outside noise that a team has to face. Did you use that logic when it came to that as well?
Yeah, for sure. And just kind of holding each other tight through the whole thing. I think we were really able to cancel out the noise with that. And it wasn't really too much of a factor at all.
Now, what was it like just playing in conference games, and how did that prepare you for the tournament a few months ago?
I think we were just really excited. Like we had faced kind of what we thought was the best. We had played Wisconsin and beaten them. We'd played Minnesota, done well against them. And we were just really looking forward to seeing what it was like out of conference because you just said like nobody really knew how it would be, but we kind of knew that we had faced the worst. So that was kind of reassuring as we were going in.
Yeah, and just talk about what it's like to play in the WCHA and just the competition you face every single night because there's no night off, as some people like to say.
Yeah, for sure. It's great. I mean, you love the competition. One of Coach Bellamy's favorite quotes, I'm gonna completely mess this up, but a rising tide lifts all ships, and that's just so true for the league. We all make each other better, and it's a lot of fun.
Now, what was going through your head after you lost to Ohio State? Just talk about that game and what do you think went wrong when you reflect on it?
Uh, I think a lot went wrong. We were coming off of a high off of our last weekend, and we kind of lost some of that focus. But I think that every team needs a big loss like that in order to kind of bounce back and realize the mistakes that we made and being able to better correct that. So I think a lot of our weaknesses got exposed in that game, and we were able to improve off of what we saw.
Now, what was going through your mind watching the other in-season tournaments happening, especially since your team was a bubble team? So, if certain results happened, your team might have not made the tournament.
Yeah, I was honestly just trying to avoid it. Like, it doesn't really matter until we get into that final the viewing ceremony or whatever. So I know a lot of the girls were kind of like pasted to their phones, pasted to watching all those games, but I was just more worried about doing other things in life and having a fun time and still preparing for that tournament if it did happen, but I really wasn't too caught up in the process.
Now, what was your reaction when your team made the national tournament? Because I saw the video, it was pretty awesome, and I
Yeah.
couldn't find where you were. So, I guess like where were you in the video, and what was your reaction when you found out you made it in?
I was in the corner. A lot of people were kind of like running around, jumping around. I didn't honestly go too crazy. I think it was Emma Soderberg. I gave her a big hug. We were just kind of sitting there reflecting on it. And it was a lot of fun just to look around and see everybody celebrating so hard. And then again, to like watch that video back, it's just brings chills every time. So.
Now, someone did step on the logo. What's your thoughts on that? And do you have anything you want to say about it? Because people were
Oh,
commenting on that.
yeah, I mean, Nick got super excited. That was Nick Bryant. Not to call him out like that, but he messed up. He did, but that's okay because it came from a good place. So
Definitely. Now, I guess like how did you guys prepare for the tournament, and what was it like being in Erie just during that whole tournament experience?
it was great. We got to go down to Lake Erie, which was really fun. It was Coach came with us actually, and it was a small group of us, and that was awesome because you kind of are just stuck in your hotel room all day, but to get out of the hotel and check out the beach, which is one of my favorite places, was awesome.
Nice. And just talk about the atmosphere at the tournament games because I know Duluth towards the end of the season was starting to let in fans back in the stadium. And obviously the tournament had only 25% capacity, but just talk about the atmosphere and just being a player in that setting because even though it was only at 25% capacity, it was still a pretty cool
Yeah,
atmosphere because you can kind of hear it when you're watching it on TV.
yeah, it was great having fans back. It's always so nice to see people there. And for me, especially having my parents be there, looking up in the stands and seeing my dad and my mom there is just great. My grandparents come a lot too, which is a lot of fun, but I I do love hearing all the fans, but it's more just for me seeing my parents up there is reassuring and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it makes you more calm, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I sometimes get too caught up in seeing, like, looking at my dad in the stands just because I love to see his reactions to stuff. I think it's hilarious, but it reminds me of playing youth, which is good.
How do you find them? Because that stadium was pretty big. Like, I don't know how you could find. Because I feel like I couldn't find where my if my parents were sitting at a stadium like that. If I was in playing in
Yeah.
that game.
He always sits in the same places. It's in one of the corners. I don't know if he realizes that he does the same thing every time, but he does. So it's pretty easy to look for him.
Definitely. Now you started off the tournament playing against Colgate. You won that game in overtime, 1-0. What did you take away from that game, and just talk about your team's defensive performance throughout that game because that was probably the most impressive part of your team's performance, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were a super, super good team. In my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, that we faced that whole year. And yeah, it just really forced us to lock down defensively. Emma had an absolutely unreal game. Our defense played unreal. It was really just a team effort. And we had worked so much on defensive zone all year that to get that win finally at the end, it was kind of just like all of our hard work paid off.
Yeah, definitely. Talk about what it's like to play with Emma Soderberg and just talk about how good of a goalie she is because she's one of the best goalies in the country, in my opinion.
Yeah, if not the best in mine.
Mhm.
I can talk about her all day. She's awesome. She works so hard. She's so focused every day at the rink and practice, and she's going to do whatever it takes to win. And just feeling that sense of calm back there, it really just exudes from the net and carries up and affects the entire team. So it's really just irreplaceable.
And then you played Northeastern in the Frozen Four. How did your team offensively prepare for Northeastern, especially since they have another great goalie in Aaron Frankel who just won the Patty Caz?
Yeah, she's a great goalie. And I think just focusing on, we always say, like, buzz the tower, get shots to net, just doing that same thing, but making sure we were really testing her, which I think we did pretty well, but she also shut us down pretty well. So I think we focused on the right stuff offensively, but the puck just didn't bounce our way sometimes.
Now, I know she went to Shattuck. Did you guys ever get the chance to play against each other in practices, or was the age difference too far apart?
I was only there for my senior year, so she had been gone for a bit before I got there.
Oh, okay. I was just curious about that,
Yeah.
because sometimes you don't realize it because I know they separate players in high school because of age differences. So I was just curious about that. But another thing I noticed watching that game was how physical the game was, especially in overtime. There was a lot of pushing and shoving and some checking even. Was that something your team practiced before the game, trying to bring that physicality to Northeastern? Because obviously the WCHA is known to be one of the more physical conferences in women's college hockey.
Yeah, I think our team is just physical by nature. Like, off the bat, and even captain's practices, that was one of our main focuses. We're battling, going against each other 100%. So we were definitely prepared for the physical aspect of the game. And we had also hit the weight room pretty hard all year. So we were strong and prepared for that.
How did you adjust to the physicality of being in the WCHA?
It wasn't too bad. I'm a big girl. Yeah, my stats would show you that, but
Mhm.
it wasn't bad at all. I think for girls who are shorter and weigh less, it's worse for them, but it was more just the speed of game for me, which was hard to adjust to.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think hitting should be allowed in women's hockey? I was just thinking about that watching the game because I feel like it would add a different aspect to the game, but I know some players are opposed to it.
No, I mean, for my game, I think for sure we have to. It would make me a better player, but yeah, I think it would be great. I think women's hockey has already come so far just focusing on other aspects of the game without hitting that it's brought it to a higher level. And if we could bring in hitting now, maybe we would get more viewers because people seem to love it. So,
Mhm. What's the biggest check you've ever thrown, if you want to share that?
oh gosh, I don't know. 14U, I was the highest penalty minute player in the league, and 12U, and probably 16U. So
Mhm.
I could tell you a lot of stories probably about that. But
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now, obviously, you lost that game in overtime. I guess, like, what emotions were you feeling after that overtime goal was scored? Because watching it on TV, it felt like it was going through slow motion because the puck kind of went off Emma's shoulder and then trickled into the net. How was it? Just as slow as I thought it was, or was it a little bit faster? Just talk about the emotions you were feeling after that goal was scored.
For me, it was a little faster, I'd say, because as soon as I kind of made that pass to Rogie, and it went on the other player's stick, I knew they were going to score. It was just kind of a sinking feeling. Not that I knew I was going to let it in or anything, but she was kind of coming down Broadway, so it was a rush after that, a whirlwind, and yeah, your heart just kind of sinks, and you feel bad for all the seniors who aren't going to get the chance to step on the ice again.
And how did you try to get over that loss after weeks after it happened? I guess.
Yeah, just talking to my coaches really helped a lot. I talked to Coach Bellamy a bit, and that helped a lot, I would say, and talking to my teammates too.
And what was the message heading into overtime in that game? Because your team had a 2-0 lead heading into the third period. Then Northeastern scored a power play goal early in the third period, then tied it up a little bit later in the third period as well. So I guess, like, what was the message heading into the locker room after that third period happened before overtime?
Just holding each other tight, locking up in the D zone. I'm trying to tell you what I can about this game. I honestly don't remember too much of it. It's still a blur, but uh, yeah, just I feel like we were feeling pretty fresh. We were feeling pretty good. So just out skating them and outworking them was a huge message too.
Now, when you look back on this season, what do you overall take away from it personally and for your team as well?
Yeah, it was a huge season. Well, obviously my first year, I don't have anything to compare it to, but it was a huge season for the program, finally getting back in that Frozen Four game. And so there's a lot to take away, just knowing that we can be there, knowing that we're not kind of an underdog team, but a favorite going into next year. And that's always a huge confidence boost. So just for training this summer, just having that end goal in mind, having been there, it will be super motivating.
Yeah, no, and I'm just curious to ask you this because watching your team play this year, you were one of my favorite players to watch. You were just buzzing around, scoring goals, creating offensive chances. I guess, like, how did you, is that something like, what's your focus when you go to a game? Like, how do you try to block out the fans, the outside noise, and just focus on trying to create offensive chances for your teammates? Because that's something that I find really impressive about your game.
Thank you. That's very nice. I just kind of focus on my line mates. I had a really close line this year, whether it was Kylie or Manon at center, and then with Rogie, and we would kind of just go over the same things before the games, focusing on the basics and supporting each other, and then offense would come from there. But really not focusing on anything but each other in the moments before the game and the days leading up to it was huge.
Now, I asked you this last podcast, but what was the biggest improvement you've made to your game this past year when you reflect on it?
I think just having more composure with the puck and confidence with the puck at the beginning of the year, the change in pace was hard, just still holding on to the puck, making the right play. And as the season went on, I was able to kind of get my head up, take a breath, and not just throw it away as much, which I didn't really do too much, but it was more of a feeling for me that the pressure's coming so quickly, but at the end I was able to slow it down more.
Now, how did you balance both the academics and hockey aspect of being a student athlete and a Division One athlete as well?
It hasn't been too hard at all. Um, all the science majors have it a lot worse than I do. I'm a political science major, so it hasn't been too overwhelming for me. I'm one of the only ones on the team who's not doing sciences, and my roommate gets mad at me sometimes because I do like a fraction of the work that she does, and we get the same grades. So it's funny.
Yeah, no, I'm super impressed of how you guys do it because it's hard just balancing your work without playing any sports. But then, like, once you add that on top of it, I feel like it just adds more pressure
Yeah,
when you're just a student and an athlete as well.
for sure.
Now, I want to ask you this, and I want to get your thoughts on this. But the World Championships were canceled recently. What are your thoughts on that? And just your overall opinion on what do you think should be done to help grow the sport of women's hockey.
Yeah, it's obviously heartbreaking for all the women who are going there, all the women who sacrificed so much time and training and the time in quarantine, just put so much on the line for it, and such a last minute decision. Really just heartbreaking. There's a lot of discussion that that would have never happened with the guys, and I agree with that completely. And to not reschedule it yet and just to cancel it straight up, very heartbreaking and sad. So I hope that they can make amends with that soon and make things right.
Does it hurt to see that the under 18 world championships for the men's are still being held in Texas while they canceled the women's world championships?
Yeah, for sure. It's understandable, like, different countries have different rules, but it's kind of just a slap in the face to watch that going on while the Worlds for women was canceled.
Yeah, definitely, especially since some of your Duluth teammates were going to be playing in that World Championships. And I know you never played with Sydney Brock, but I was looking forward to see how she added to that new U.S. team. I thought that was going to be super fun to watch.
I agree completely. She's a great player. And my roommate Nina, I got her home from it. So that was a positive for me, but still heartbreaking for sure.
Definitely, definitely. Now we're now in the non-hockey segment of the podcast where I ask you some non-hockey questions. Now this non-hockey segment is a little bit different than last time because I just found random questions on the internet about random things. So let's see what happens. I guess the first one is, what is the most interesting thing you've seen or read this week?
Oh my gosh. I always feel so badly at these. Oh, let me think. I had a good one.
I guess for myself was probably seeing the transfer portal for college hockey. I know this is the non-hockey segment, but it was interesting to see like how so many players are transferring this year just because of the pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. That was super interesting. Everybody kind of moving around for their fifth year
Hmm.
is really cool to see. I guess the most interesting thing would be my family got the second vaccine and how it hits different people completely different, even though we all have the same genes. That's interesting.
Yeah, I know. I got my first vaccine like last week, and I didn't feel anything. But everyone tells me that the second vaccine is completely worse, and it hits you pretty harder. So
Yeah.
hopefully I feel fine after it. But I guess it's better than getting COVID, so I'm not gonna complain too much about it.
Yeah, true.
Now, what is one movie you cried during or after, I guess? Like what movie made you cry before?
Titanic.
I've never seen it before, so
Oh, you have to get on that. You have to go watch that right after this.
I
It's a good
should. I should. What made you cry about it? I guess like when the ship sank or something. I assume.
Yeah, just the families being split up,
Mm.
and when I'm not gonna ruin too much. Actually, I'm not even gonna say it for you since you haven't seen it yet, but there's a sad part at the end.
All right. I definitely have to get on that. I guess for myself, to be completely honest with you, I don't think I've ever cried during a movie. I'm not trying to make myself look like a tough guy. I don't think I've ever cried. I guess the closest I came to was there was this movie called McFarland USA. I don't know if you've ever seen it before,
Yeah.
but it was like a cross country movie, and there was like a scene where he's like hyping up the boys before their cross country meet, and that was a cool scene to watch.
Yeah. My grandpa cried pretty hard during that, so I'm sure
Oh,
he can
nice.
relate to you.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good movie. If you ever have the chance to watch it, I highly recommend it.
I like it. I like it a lot. It's good.
Now, obviously, a lot of people know you as a great hockey player, but besides being a good hockey player, what is something you wished more people knew about yourself?
I really like to sail and I like to play the cello.
Nice. I've never met anyone that's played the cello. How do you do it? Because it seems like the string, and then you have to pluck the strings a little bit as well.
Yeah, there's plucking involved, but yeah, it goes between your legs. It's the second biggest instrument in the orchestra, and kind of hold it like this. Short
What made
synopsis, I guess.
what made you want to play a cello? I'm curious because that's not like an instrument that people like want to play, I guess, when they grow up.
Um, I like the sound of it best. It's hands down the best sounding orchestra instrument in the orchestra. Don't fight me on that one.
Hmm.
Um, but my sister played the bass and my brother plays the violin. So I guess I kind of went in between them as the middle child.
Nice. Did you do any orchestra like in high school or in college, I guess?
Yeah, I did 3 years of orchestra in high school, and then I stopped when I went to Shattuck. But I'm joining the orchestra next year here, so
Oh,
I'm
that's
excited
awesome.
for that.
Well, if you have any concerts coming up, feel free to reach out. We'll definitely promote you in the cello. I think people would definitely come to watch that.
That would be great. I would
Mhm.
appreciate that.
What's your favorite song to play on the cello?
Oh, there's a folk song that I really like to play. I don't think you would know it though.
Oh, what's it called?
French folk song. It's a pretty basic one.
Uh, I've never heard of it, honestly. Do you listen to like classical music and stuff? Because I only really listen to it like when I'm studying and I need to like focus.
No, I'm not a big classical musical listener, but maybe I should get into it now that I'm taking back up the cello again.
That'd be cool. It'll be a cool thing. Like you should play it on the aux like before a game. Just put on some like Beethoven or something. It'll definitely throw some people off, but I think it would hype up the team.
Yeah, I'm sure the girls would love that. I'll have to
Mhm.
get back to you on how that goes over for me.
It should go over well. You won't be a freshman, so I think people would have to listen to you a little bit more.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know if they'll listen to the classical music, but we'll see.
Definitely. Well, I played the drums in middle school. That was like the only instrument I really played like seriously, and that was fun. Snare drum. It's pretty once you know like the rhythms and stuff. Like it's pretty easy to learn.
Okay, nice. We might have to do a duet or something.
That'll be cool. That'll be cool if I ever come down to Duluth. I don't know how a snare drum and cello duet will work, but I think we can figure it out.
Yeah, we can make it happen for sure.
I want to learn how to play the guitar. That's like the one instrument I've always wanted to learn because it seems cool, like just to pop out the acoustic like at a party and just like play like
True.
Mr. Brightside. I think it would be definitely people would get a lot of people's attention.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Now, next non-hockey question to you is: what is the most spontaneous thing you have ever done?
Oh, wow. Okay. Once me, my best friend, and my sister, um, we were having just a lake day, and we were kind of like we could definitely swim across this lake, just throwing it out there, and then we decided to do it. So we swam. I think it was a 3.5 mile swim across the lake, and we just jumped in and did it.
That's awesome. That seems like hard work too, because like
Yeah.
3.5 miles, like walking can be a lot for some people, but swimming I feel like is another whole aspect.
Oh yeah. It was open water too, and it wasn't the stillest day on the lake. So I think we bit off a little more that we could chew, but it turned out to be fine.
Well, at least you got that experience, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, I can't think of anything on the top of my head. I guess probably like I decided to go to like a Red Sox game, like just out of a whim, and it turned out to be a fun game. It was like a walk-off win. Like that was kind of cool, but kind of boring. I don't really have really anything interesting about my life, to be honest with you.
Oh no. You got to do some interesting stuff then, I guess.
Yeah, once COVID's over, like I'm definitely gonna try some new things. I'm hoping to get into photography and videography and stuff like that. So it's something I've been practicing recently, and I can hopefully use it for the podcast as well.
Awesome.
Now, if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
That's a huge question. Wow. Um, Jeez. There's
I
so
guess
much to be said. This is such a hard question. What would you say?
I think I'd promote the podcast number one because
Okay.
that I feel like that it seems a bit selfish. And then I think the other thing I would promote is probably like forgiveness. I think that's something that society lacks today is people like don't learn to forgive each other. So I think that's
Mhm.
something I would preach.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Hmm.
I can't give you a good answer for that one. Maybe just, yeah, unity or
Yeah,
accepting everybody or human rights, women's rights.
definitely. Women's hockey.
Probably not women's hockey. That seems a bit selfish, but
Yeah. Someone
maybe.
said women's hockey, so I was just curious when I
Yeah.
asked that question.
No, I think I would probably try to go bigger picture with that without,
Hmm. Definitely.
yeah, I don't know.
Now, what is your favorite app?
Oh, Candy Crush.
I've never played that before, but my mom's a huge fan of it. So
Yeah, it's kind of an old woman game, but it's my favorite.
I guess for me, it's probably YouTube. Is that considered an app? I feel like it is. I like going on YouTube and just watching random videos. So
Fair
that'll be
enough.
mine.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Now, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Oh, probably Lake Placid, New York, because it's beautiful. They got two lakes
Mhm.
and mountains, all four seasons, which is a must. And it's close to other cool things. So,
Mhm.
what about you?
Cape Cod, or I think Lake Placid would be cool just because of the movie. Like that's one of my favorite movies of all time,
Mm,
Miracle.
yeah,
So you can play hockey and do other fun outdoor activities. So that seems fun. But or if that wasn't that, probably the Cape.
nice.
Now, what was your first ever job?
Um, I work for Puck Masters, it's called. I guess this is kind of a promo shout out, but it's in Detroit. And I just coach little kids, which is a lot of fun. We do private lessons and super deeker, if you know what that is, skating, treadmill, working out. And I just walk them through it and coach them all day.
That's awesome. Is it like a different perspective coaching someone versus playing hockey, I guess, or playing hockey versus coaching someone at hockey?
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me of my love for the game when I was young. So that's great.
I heard the biggest thing when you coach is like patience. How'd you learn patience when you're at that job? Because sometimes people's developments can take a little bit longer than expected.
Yeah. Well, I only have 45 minutes with each kid. So if I'm really struggling, I just count down the minutes and sometimes even just move them to a game that I enjoy and make them play it with me, which sounds kind of bad, but if we can have fun together, then the time will go by a lot more quickly.
Now, what is your favorite podcast?
Oh, geez. I don't listen to podcasts really.
Oh,
I like listening to Michigan Public Radio with my mom, but that's about it. I would say your podcast then. College
awesome.
Hockey Talk is my favorite.
Awesome. Well, that's the best answer I've ever heard. So that's a great answer. So I have to agree with you on that. Now, this is kind of a hockey question, but who do you think is the most underrated female hockey player that you've ever played against or you've watched play?
Hmm, that's another hard one. I'd say Anna Klein.
Yeah, she's a great leader too. I think people don't realize that aspect part of her game as well.
Yeah, she's unreal and just started getting kind of national attention this year, but she's a go-to goal scorer and can always get the job done, which is super, super rare.
Yeah, I think for your team, I think Emma Soderberg, I think people don't realize how good of a goalie she is, and I think she's definitely going to be playing in the Olympics one day with Sweden.
For sure.
Now,
Super underrated.
now speaking of the podcast, what are your thoughts on the podcast since we last had you on, and what did you take away from your interview when we last had you on a few months ago?
Oh, I love it. I took away from the podcast that I need to get better at answering short questions like that, which I did not get better at them at all, but I will continue working on rapid fire questions like that. But I think it's great. I think it's great that you're promoting both women and male hockey, and that's a rare thing that you don't usually see.
I think you did a great job on the podcast, so that's just my opinion. So
Thank you.
now, is there any guests that we should have on in the future? I feel like you know some people that would be cool to talk to.
Oh, let me think. Oh, have you gotten Emma Soderberg on yet?
I have not.
You seem to be talking a lot about her, and she's got a great accent, so that one could be fun.
I heard she's the best trash talker on the team. Is that true?
Oh, is that what Taylor told you? Because no, that's not true.
Oh, no, Sydney Brott said she would always like when we had her on the podcast, she would always like talk trash every time she stopped her from a puck. So that was like that's something I've just heard from some of your teammates.
No, she knows. She has funny chirp. She definitely does, and they're even better with her accent. So you'll have to ask her about that if you get her on.
Definitely, definitely. I've heard the best trash talker on the team is Mackenzie Revering. Do you think
Oh,
that's true?
I would agree with that for sure. Yeah.
What's the best chirp you've heard from her?
Oh, I don't know if that's PG.
Uh,
I don't really know.
Well, Taylor Anderson was telling me like how she tripped someone on the Gophers for having no sock tape, and like she was on that player like the entire game. Is that a true story?
Yeah, I've heard that one. I don't know. I think it happened the year before I came, so I've heard a lot about it, but I wasn't there to experience it, unfortunately.
Awesome. Well, is there anything you'd like to talk about before we let you go? The floor is all yours. Any shout outs you like to give, or just anything in particular you like to discuss?
I'd like to give a shout out to my sister and brother.
Awesome.
That's it. But thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
No problem. Thank you once again, Clara, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I admire you a lot as a player, and I'll love to have you back on the podcast again. But I also admire you a lot as a person. You're a great person off the ice, and I just want to let you know that. So take care and stay safe.
Oh, thank